I'm using your bonus, $36,000, to take my kids to Europe, my girlfriend said. They deserve a real vacation. My kids had never been on a plane. 3 weeks later, I saw the charges: luxury spa, designer shopping, five-star dinners, nothing for her kids either. I called the bank, dispute every transaction. When the credit card company called her for verification, they didn't get panic. They got attitude. "This is ridiculous," my girlfriend snapped, her voice sharp enough that I could hear it through the phone speaker while I sat in my office staring at the fraud report. "That card is for household use." The specialist kept her tone calm. "Ma'am, the cardholder has disputed multiple charges totaling $36,000. We need to confirm whether you had authorization to use those funds." I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window of my office at the private academy campus where I worked as an education consultant. Parents were walking their kids to the front entrance. Teachers were carrying coffee and tote bags. Everything outside looked normal. Inside, my life was detonating. My girlfriend, Vanessa, had told me 3 weeks earlier, with the kind of smug certainty that makes your blood run cold, "I'm using your bonus to take my kids to Europe. They deserve a real vacation. Not our kids. Her kids." My kids had never even been on a plane. I remember standing in the kitchen when she said it, one hand on the counter, still in my work clothes, tie loosened after a 14-hour day. I had just gotten my year-end performance bonus, $36,000 after taxes, the biggest payout of my career. I had spent years building district partnerships, designing academic intervention programs, and helping schools clean up messy compliance disasters that nobody else wanted to touch. The bonus wasn't luck. It was years of missed weekends, red-eye flights, emergency calls from superintendents, and smiling through everyone else's chaos. I'd been proud of it for about 6 hours. Then Vanessa looked at me over her wine glass and said, like it was already settled, "The boys and I need this. Paris, Rome, maybe Barcelona. Something beautiful. They deserve memories." I stared at her. "Using what money?" She rolled her eyes. "Your bonus, Elijah. Don't act confused. My bonus isn't family spending money." That was when she laughed. Actually laughed. "You make more than enough. And honestly, you owe us a little joy after all the time you spend working." Us. That word did a lot of heavy lifting in Vanessa's vocabulary. Us meant her needs, her boys' needs, her mother's emergencies, her sister's rent shortfall, her latest business idea, the expensive skincare she swore was an investment, the furniture she bought because the house needed to feel elevated. But when it came to my kids, Ava and Micah, suddenly there were budgets, delays, practicality, timing issues. "Europe is not happening," I told her. She folded her arms. "I already booked part of it." I remember the exact feeling in my chest. Not anger at first, something worse. The sick, sinking realization that she had not misunderstood me. She had dismissed me. "I'm canceling it," I said. "No, you're not," she shot back. "Don't you dare ruin this for them." "Them?" I asked. "My daughter is 12 and has never left the state. My son is 9 and has never even seen the ocean." Vanessa's face changed then. Harder. Colder. "My kids have been through enough," she said. "They deserve something special." I looked at her for a long second. "And mine don't?" She didn't answer directly. She never did when the truth made her look ugly. Instead, she grabbed her phone, muttered, "I'm not doing this with you," and left the room like I was the one being unreasonable. That should have been the moment I ended it. It wasn't. Because when you've been slowly boiled in disrespect, you stop recognizing the water is deadly. I met Vanessa 2 years after my divorce. My ex-wife, Tasha, and I had split without fireworks, without cheating, without screaming. Just exhaustion, distance, and the slow death that comes when two people become competent roommates instead of partners. We co-parented well. We kept things steady for the kids. There was grief, yes, but not war. After that, I told myself I wanted someone warm, someone spontaneous, someone who made life feel less scheduled and careful. Vanessa was all of that at first. She was beautiful in a loud, polished way. Big smile, fast laugh. Perfect hair. She had two sons, Jalen and Marcus, and she talked endlessly about wanting to build a blended family full of love, fun, and second chances. She said all the right things. "I don't want a man to rescue me," she told me on our third date. "I want a partner." What she meant, I would later learn, was investor. At first it was subtle. She'd forget her wallet at dinner. Her car needed repairs. One of the boys needed new cleats. Her ex was late on support. Her landlord was raising rent. Every story ended with pressure, and every pressure somehow drifted toward me. I didn't mind helping in the beginning. I made a good living. Education consulting isn't flashy, but at my level, it paid well. And I'd always been careful with money. I owned my home. I had college funds for my kids. I maxed out retirement. I budgeted. I planned. Vanessa seemed impressed by that at first. Then she grew entitled to it. When she moved into my house, it happened faster. She started making changes without asking, replacing furniture, repainting walls, ordering things on my accounts because it's easier. I pushed back sometimes, but she had a talent for making every boundary sound cruel. "Wow," she'd say. "I didn't realize generosity came with so many conditions." Or, "I thought we were building a home together." Or, my personal favorite, "You're amazing with spreadsheets, Elijah, but relationships require heart." Heart apparently meant I paid and she decided. Meanwhile, my kids noticed things before I let myself see them. Ava got quieter around Vanessa. Micah stopped asking if all six of us were doing things together. If I bought tickets to a baseball game, Vanessa would somehow turn it into a whole family event, then complain that the seats weren't good enough. If I planned something just for my two, she'd pout for hours and say I was dividing the household. One night, my daughter asked me in the car, very softly, "Dad, does Vanessa not like us?" I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "Why would you ask that?" Ava shrugged, like she wanted to disappear into the seat. "She acts happy with us when you're looking." That sentence stayed in my bones. Still, I rationalized. I said blending families was hard. I said everybody was adjusting. I said love takes work. What I should have said was, "I'm sorry I brought someone into your lives who makes you feel less welcome in your father's home." The bonus fight happened on a Thursday. By Friday morning, Vanessa was acting like it had all been settled. She sent me flight screenshots while I was on campus. A luxury hotel in Paris, a villa outside Florence, business class seats. "The boys are so excited," she texted, followed by a heart emoji. I called her immediately. What part of no was unclear? She sighed dramatically. "Elijah, I'm not arguing with you in the middle of the day. This is happening. Stop being selfish." Selfish? Yes. You're always talking about experiences and exposure and growth. Isn't Europe educational? Or does education only matter when it's in one of your little consultant PowerPoints? I almost laughed from disbelief. Cancel everything. "No. If you use that card..." "What?" she snapped. "You'll embarrass me? Punish the kids? God, you are unbelievable." Then she hung up. That night, I checked the account and found she had already charged nearly $11,000. Flights, hotels, deposits. I froze. Then I called the card company and locked the account. Vanessa came home 2 hours later and stormed into my office holding her phone like a weapon. "You froze the card?" "Yes." She stared at me. "You humiliated me." "No, I stopped you. For my children. For yourself," I said. "Let's not lie to each other." She took a step closer. "You have no idea what it's like to try to give your kids something beautiful when the world keeps taking from them." I stood up. "And you have no idea what it looks like when a man starts noticing he's being used." Her expression flickered. Just for a second. Then she scoffed. "Used by the woman who keeps this house running?" I looked around my home office, my desk, my bookshelves, my framed photos with Ava and Micah, my laptop, paid for by me. The mortgage, paid by me. The utilities, groceries, insurance, repairs, vacations, school clothes, birthday gifts, camp deposits. All of it. "Get out," I said quietly. Her face drained. "Excuse me? You heard me. You don't mean that." I walked around the desk and opened the door. "Get out." She laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "Elijah, don't be dramatic. Take your boys and go to your sister's, your mother's, a hotel, I don't care. But you're not staying here after trying to steal from me." That was when the mask finally dropped. She jabbed a finger toward my chest. "You think because you have money, you get to control people." "No," I said. "I think because I earned it, you don't." She slapped the doorframe with her palm so hard it rattled. "My boys will remember this." I looked her dead in the face. So will mine. She left the room furious, but she didn't leave the house. Instead, she switched strategies. For the next week, she became sugary and wounded. She cried in the kitchen when she thought I could hear. She told mutual friends we were having a disagreement about priorities. She hugged me in front of the boys. She tried to climb into my bed one night and whispered, "Let's not blow up something good over money." Money. That was the word she used when she wanted to make exploitation sound petty. I stayed cold. I moved my cards and banking apps to new passwords. I had a quiet consultation with an attorney since Vanessa had been living in my home long enough that I wanted to handle everything correctly. I also called Tasha and asked if the kids could stay with her a few extra nights while I sorted things out. She listened in silence, then said, "Elijah, this has been bad for a while, hasn't it?" I closed my eyes. "Yeah, I'm not going to say I told you so. You'd have earned it." She paused. "Ava has been asking if she can leave her things at my place full time." That one hurt, not because Tasha was being cruel, because she was being honest. 3 weeks after the original Europe announcement, I sat in my office reviewing the card statement and felt my stomach turn to ice. Vanessa had found another card, an old premium account I'd barely used, one that had been stored in a drawer downstairs for emergencies. I'd forgotten she'd once seen me put it there. The charges were breathtaking. Luxury spa packages, designer boutiques, 5-star restaurants, private car service, a weekend at a resort 2 hours away, no airline tickets, no museum passes, no passport processing, no travel insurance, nothing connected to a trip for her boys at all. Not Europe, not even close. Just indulgence. Just theft dressed up as motherhood. I called the bank immediately. "Dispute every transaction," I said. The fraud specialist asked if the user had authorization. "No," I said. "And I want the account frozen now." Then came the verification call with Vanessa. And Vanessa, because arrogance makes people sloppy, said exactly the wrong thing. "If he's disputing this, it's because he's angry," she told Belle. "Not because it wasn't allowed," the specialist asked. "Do you have written authorization from the cardholder?" Vanessa hesitated. I said nothing. Then she snapped, "We live together. I shouldn't need written permission every time I use household money." There it was. Household money again. My favorite myth. The specialist thanked her and ended the call. 10 minutes later, I got confirmation the disputes were open. 40 minutes later, Vanessa called me 23 times. I didn't answer. She started texting instead. "How dare you? You're ruining my life. After everything I've done for you. The boys are crying. You are sick." Then, my favorite. I was going to replace it. With what money, I wondered. The imaginary kind? When I got home that evening, she was waiting in the kitchen with her arms folded, and her eyes swollen from either rage or strategic crying. "You disputed all of it?" "Yes. You called the bank on me like I'm some criminal." I set my keys down. "If the shoe fits." Her mouth fell open. "Unbelievable." "No," I said. "What's unbelievable is telling me you needed $36,000 to give your children memories, then blowing it on facials, handbags, and tasting menus." Her face flushed. "You don't know what those charges were for. I know exactly what they were for." "You went through every transaction?" "Yes. That is such a violation." I actually laughed, then one sharp, humorless sound. "A violation?" I repeated. "You stole from me." She stepped closer, voice lowering. "Don't use that word." "Why? Because it's accurate?" She looked over her shoulder, making sure the boys weren't nearby, then hissed, "You are not going to destroy my relationship with my children because you're too cheap to share." That did it. Cheap. I leaned in slightly and spoke just as quietly. "My kids have never been on a plane, never been to Europe, never had luxury anything. But somehow I was supposed to finance your fantasy while mine watched from home. And the worst part isn't that you wanted more for your boys. It's that you never once thought mine deserved equal joy. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because for once, there was no spin for the truth. I kept going. You didn't just expose yourself with the charges, Vanessa. You exposed yourself with the priorities. Her chin lifted. I'm a mother, and I'm a father. You wouldn't understand what I sacrifice. I stared at her. You're right. I don't understand stealing from your partner to buy yourself a spa weekend. That was when she exploded. She called me controlling, petty, vindictive, emotionally stunted. She said I weaponized money. She said I had always treated her like a guest in my house. Guest. I paid for her son's school clothes, covered orthodontic bills, put groceries in the kitchen, kept the lights on, fixed the furnace, paid the phone plan when her service got cut off, handed her grace every time she overstepped. Guest was generous. Parasite was closer. Her oldest son, Jalen, wandered into the hallway halfway through the fight. He was 15, old enough to understand more than adults think. He looked from her face to mine and said, Mom? Vanessa instantly changed tone. Tears, trembling lips, soft voice. Baby, it's okay. Elijah is just upset. Jalen frowned. Did you really use his card? The silence that followed was glorious. Vanessa turned to him. It's complicated. That's the anthem of guilty people. Jalen looked embarrassed. Not at me. At her. And that was the moment I saw something I hadn't expected. Even her own kid was tired. By the weekend, I had legal paperwork prepared and a timeline for her to move out. My attorney was clear, calm, and efficient. Follow the process. Keep records. No drama, no threats, no shortcuts. Vanessa tried one last play before she realized the game was over. She invited my mother to lunch. Now, my mom is a church-going, soft-spoken woman who believes in forgiveness, second chances, and casserole as emotional support. Vanessa had charmed her early, called her Miss Loretta, sent flowers on Mother's Day, complimented her pound cake. It was all very calculated. I found out about the lunch because my mother called me after. Elijah, she said carefully. Vanessa is very upset. I rubbed my forehead. I'm sure she is. She says there's been a misunderstanding. There hasn't. A pause. Then, did she really take your bonus? No, she tried. Then, when I stopped that, she used another card and spent thousands on herself. Another pause, longer this time. Then my mother said, very quietly, Oh. I could picture her then, sitting in her kitchen, one hand on the table, finally seeing the thing she'd hoped wasn't true. I wanted to believe the best, she said. I know. And my children noticed long before I did. That broke her heart. I heard it happen. When Vanessa realized my mother wasn't going to rescue her, she turned vicious again. She posted vague things online about surviving financial abuse. She told friends I was punishing a single mother for wanting joy. She even sent Tasha a long message trying to drag her into it, which backfired so badly, I almost admired the stupidity. Tasha forwarded it to me with one line. Now I see why Ava hates going over there. That sentence was a knife. Not because it was exaggerated, because it wasn't. So I made changes. Real ones. I ended the relationship formally and in writing. I had Vanessa removed from every account, subscription, emergency contact form, and household system she'd ever touched. I changed locks after the move-out date, legally and properly. I installed cameras. I updated wills, beneficiaries, and school pickup permissions. I reopened conversations with my kids that I should have started months earlier. One Saturday, I took Ava and Micah to breakfast. Just the three of us. No tension. No performance. No somebody else's feelings first. We sat in a booth by the window. Micah had chocolate chip pancakes. Ava had French toast. And that serious little expression she gets when she's waiting for an adult to say something that matters. I put my coffee down and said, I need to apologize to you both. Ava looked at me carefully. For what? For not seeing sooner that things at home didn't feel right. Micah stared at his syrup. Ava looked out the window. Then she said, Are they gone for good? I swallowed. Yes. Micah looked up. Really? Really? He nodded once and went back to his pancakes, like someone had just lifted a backpack full of bricks off his shoulders. Ava didn't say anything for a while. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That was all. But it was enough to make me want to go back in time and shake myself. The funny thing is, once the noise left, I could hear my own life again. My house got quieter. My finances stabilized almost instantly. Food stopped disappearing. Bills stopped inflating. Nobody was angry when I spent one-on-one time with my kids. Nobody was treating generosity like obligation. I started sleeping through the night. Then, I did something small that turned out to mean everything. I booked 3 plane tickets. Nothing extravagant, just a spring trip to Washington, D.C. for the kids and me. Museums, monuments, a nice hotel with a pool, window seats if we could get them. It wasn't Europe. It wasn't luxury. It wasn't performative. It was ours. When I told them, Micah yelled so loud the dog barked. Ava just blinked at me, then smiled in this stunned, careful way, like she didn't want to trust good news too fast. Really? She asked. Really? On a plane? On a plane. Micah pumped both fists in the air. I knew it. I knew we were going to fly someday. I laughed, but my chest ached. Because my son had talked about flying someday like it was a distant fantasy, while a woman living in our house had felt entitled to business class for herself. We took the trip a month later. Micah pressed his face to the window the entire ascent. Ava acted calm until takeoff, then grabbed my arm so hard I lost circulation in 2 fingers. We walked through museums, ate bad airport pizza, took blurry selfies, argued about souvenir budgets, and watched the city light up from the hotel room at night. At one point, standing outside the Air and Space Museum, Micah looked up at me and said, "This is the best thing we've ever done. No spa package in the world could compete with that." A few weeks after the trip, the fraud case closed in my favor. Most of the charges were reversed. The rest became evidence in a civil claim my lawyer said Vanessa would be foolish to fight. She fought anyway, of course, and lost. Because people like Vanessa always confuse confidence with invincibility. The last time I saw her was in a mediation room downtown. She looked different. Not ruined, just smaller, less polished, less certain that beauty and outrage could bend reality. She kept trying to catch my eye. I never gave it to her. At one point, she said, "You really want to do this? After everything we had?" And I answered, "What we had was me funding a fantasy while you disrespected my children in their own home." That shut her up. Later in the parking garage, she caught up with me one final time. "You've turned everyone against me," she said. I unlocked my car. "No, your choices did that. You think you're some hero now?" I looked at her over the roof of the car. "No. I think I'm a man who finally stopped negotiating with disrespect." And that was that. These days, my life is quieter, but it feels honest. I still work long hours as an education consultant. Schools are messy, parents panic. Districts blame each other. Children fall through cracks adults create. The work is demanding, but it matters. And for the first time in a long while, when I come home, I don't feel like I'm walking into a courtroom disguised as a kitchen. Ava laughs more now. Micah asks about our next flight like it's a given, not a miracle. Tasha and I co-parent better than ever, mostly because there's no longer a volatile outsider stirring guilt and competition into everything. And me? I learned something expensive. The most dangerous thieves don't always kick down your door. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they say, "we." Sometimes they wrap greed in the language of love, family, sacrifice, and healing. Sometimes they call your boundaries cruelty because your boundaries are the only thing standing between them and what they want. Vanessa thought my bonus was hers because she had mistaken access for entitlement. She thought my kindness meant weakness. She thought my children would keep accepting less. She thought I'd keep paying to be disrespected. She was wrong. The real ending wasn't the fraud dispute. It wasn't the reverse charges. It wasn't even watching her lose. It was hearing my daughter laugh on a plane for the first time. It was my son asleep against my shoulder in a hotel room after a day he would remember forever. It was realizing that love does not require self-betrayal. And it was finally understanding that a father who does not protect his peace will eventually fail to protect his children's. I won't make that mistake again.